The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. Chapter 21. A Serving Spirit. As things turned out, Gold ended up recounting his story one more time than he'd planned. The faint outline of Ecruteak City had just appeared in the north when he and Morty happened across a small campsite with two familiar sleepers. That is, they had been asleep until one of them stirred at the sound of Gold's voice. His speech was not loud, but her heightened sense of awareness at rest, sharpened after days of camping, roused her. Gold was in the midst of retelling his encounter with Suicune when he heard her unmistakable voice. "Gold?" she called with breathless wonder. "Am I dreaming? Answer if you can hear me!" Gold froze, causing Morty to nearly bump into him. "Marina? Yeah, it's me! Gold! You—" There was a brief pause in which Gold heard a shuffling in the darkness and Marina's insistent whisper. "Wake up, Junichi! Gold's here!" "What? Gold?" From there, it was a reunion of hugs, joy, and amazement. Morty acquainted himself with them, and everyone forgot their sleepiness as they listened intently to Gold's story of his escape. Gold, in turn, begged to hear news of their doings in the short time they had been apart. Marina and Junichi obliged, but they had done little more than flee the earthquake in Goldenrod and worry about him. They had heard some reports on the Pokegear about the discovery and arrest of Team Rocket members in the underground, exposed by the earthquake. Nothing, however, was reported about the incarcerated 13-year-old boy. As he came to the end of the tale at last, Gold waited in anticipation for how they planned to proceed now. Instead, Morty yawned widely beside him and covered his mouth apologetically. "Sorry," he said. "Believe me, this has all been fascinating beyond my wildest adventures, but Ecruteak City is within sight, and yet I cannot remain awake long enough to reach my own bed tonight." "We couldn't either," said Junichi with a weak grin. "You're welcome to rest with us for what's left of the night." Gold did not feel particularly drowsy, but he could not deny that his body was tired. He lay down with his friends and closed his eyes, still confident in the protection he had from on high. Within minutes, he was asleep. When Gold's self-awareness returned, he had an immediate first thought as he observed his surroundings. "I'm still asleep." He was atop a high tower, gazing east at the first peak of the sunrise. Far below him was the old-style city, in which he had lived most of his days. Beyond loomed the shape of Mount Mortar, and further out, a mist surrounding the Lake of Rage. All of it looked too real to be a dream, yet he had to be dreaming. The best way he could think of it was an out-of-body experience. The noise of displaced air swept beside him, followed by a muffled but heavy thud. Gold regarded his new avian companion with awe but little surprise, for he had somehow known to expect her. Spirit stood over him, imposing but not threatening, magnificent but not prideful. As always, though her gaze was fierce, she projected nothing but benevolent warmth by her presence. In the shadow of her regal rainbow wings, here on her very tower, Gold felt an overwhelming urge to kneel before her. "See that you do it not," said the phoenix with gentle rebuke. Half bowing already, Gold looked up at her face. Even the golden crest on her head was of such queenly splendor, he wondered why she thought herself undeserving of veneration. "But why not?" he asked. Back at Union Cave, even the Mareep bowed to you."
"Yes,"
she said,
"for they know that I am a steward on the earth. We both are, in service to the High King in heaven. I am no worthier of your worship than you are of Morty's."
Gold recalled how his tutor had wanted to bow to him, and how unfitting it felt in that moment. He understood somewhat, but Spirit was clearly greater in stature than any human could have ever been. It just didn't seem remotely the same. Spirit eyed him shrewdly, and seemed almost to guess his thoughts. Still, he spoke his mind in as respectful a tone as he could manage. "You talk of heaven a lot," he said, "but the legends are about you, Spirit. Why do you sell yourself short? You are the keeper of the sacred fire. You are the life-giver who raised Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. You saved me from the sea, fought off Silver Steelix, and made Karen's Houndoom retreat." He put a hand on his chest, hoping to signal his gratitude. "It wasn't some bearded guy on a throne of clouds. It was you. Why do you think I always ask you for help in my toughest moments?" Spirit turned her head from him, her beak pointing eastward.
"Why not just worship the sun, then?"
she asked in a rhetorical tone.
"Truly, I tell you, it is greater than me, more beautiful, and does you far more good than I ever have."
"The sun?" Gold blinked and looked at it, raising an eyebrow. "Well, yeah, I suppose so. But," he argued, "the sun isn't a person. It doesn't care about good or evil, life or death. You do."
"You know why I call you Gold,"
said the Phoenix, looking back at him.
"But do you know why I am called Spirit?"
Gold tilted his head. He had taken her name at face value, never thinking it more than a fitting attribute for a mystical creature like herself. But now that he thought harder, he wondered, where had she gotten that name? Her parents? Did Spirit ever have parents? She herself had never been one, and over the centuries, she had likely died many times, only to be reborn from her ashes. Still, there had to be a point where she, even she, was young in the counting of time. When and why had she received the name Spirit? Her voice drew him out of his thoughts, blissfully breaking the difficult mental exercise.
"You reckon well that I care about your life and the prevailing of good, but I do so in the spirit of my Creator."
In the space of a heartbeat, Spirit's form changed to the humanoid figure that resembled Gold's late mother.
"If the Phoenix had never been, and you had only known this Spirit," she said, "what would change? Would you have loved the woman who lifted you out of the water any less than the Phoenix who lifted you out of the ashes?"
Just as suddenly, she was gone again, and in her place stood a wingless human that Gold had never seen before. It was not even female this time, but a Middle Eastern-looking man with long hair and a beard, wearing plain robes. He smiled at Gold, and there was such joy and kindness in his expression that Gold recognized him at once. It was impossible, of course. He had never seen someone of this race in his life, but he knew him somehow. Then the Phoenix was back, still standing as she had been before any transformation had taken place. Gold simply accepted it, his still dreaming mind open wide to interpretation.
"You can recognize the same spirit in all of us," said the Phoenix, lowering her head closer to him. "For it all comes from the same source. The High King does not idle on a throne. For all the times you have seen me, and anyone with the spirit, you have seen him." She gazed at him with a renewed fondness that caught him by surprise. He wondered,
Was it really possible that this angelic creature was just a representative of an even greater love? Were all her charitable acts the positive symptoms of the one true good, from which all other good things stemmed? As he pondered, she leaned close and nuzzled him with her head. It was such an unexpected show of affection that he laughed with delight and stroked her crest feathers. It was a while before either spoke again. "But why are you telling me this?" Gold whispered at last, looking off at the rising sun.
"Because today is the day that I reveal myself to the world once more,"
Spirit said softly.
"Right here, at the summit of Bell Tower. When they see me, they will desire to worship me as you did."
Gold snapped his head back at her, stunned by the news. "Today? Why are you doing it?"
"So that everyone who sees will know that you spoke truly of me."
Spirit's voice was now stern.
"Too long has my legend been about who I have resurrected and who I can bring happiness to. It is time they knew why I was put on this earth and why I have these powers. They need to know that it has never been about me after all."